Hey everyone! Today I'm chatting with Luba Yudasina. She's a software engineer at Airbnb, a passionate opera singer and performer, a YouTuber, and an ice cream enthusiast and maker. So let's talk to her and find out how she's juggling so many things all at once and her story of how she got to become a software engineer. Luba, it's so good to have you here today.
So good to see you as well, Masha.
So let's start with, how did you get into software engineering, and especially your story of coming from Belarus to landing this high-tech job in Silicon Valley?
I'm originally from Belarus, and that's where I was born and raised, but since about the age of 14, I've always seen myself study somewhere abroad. So I picked University of Waterloo in Canada because of their amazing co-op program where we did internships every other semester. And I actually studied chemical engineering. By virtue of circumstance, I had a lot of friends in software engineering and computer science, so I spent about a year just studying computer science on my own with a goal to get an internship in Silicon Valley as a software engineer to see if I actually liked it. And fast forward, I spent the year, was successful, got an internship as a software engineer, and that's how I made my transition. But still, I have finished a chemical engineering degree and then picked up a computer science minor. And from one of the internships that I've done, I got a full-time offer to come back to San Francisco to work as a software engineer at Airbnb, which I accepted, and that's how I ended up here.
You had some amazing internship gigs. What are some of the companies you worked at?
Yeah, so I got really lucky for my first software engineering internship. I landed Yelp, which was pretty cool because it's in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, as my first internship. I did another internship there, and then I did Airbnb, where I actually work right now. So I ended up getting a full-time offer from my internship there. And then for my last internship, I worked at a small startup in Waterloo. Waterloo has actually a really up-and-coming tech scene with a lot of big tech companies also have offices there. So I've worked there as well.
Wonderful. And then let's talk about your passion for opera. How did you get into that? What's the story?
Yeah, so opera has been my passion for many, many years now. As my mom says, I've been singing words instead of saying them when I was born and learned how to speak, but maybe don't trust that opinion. I'm not sure how true that is, but I've been into singing since I was a very little kid, and I experimented with different styles, pop, jazz, and then when I was about 11 years old, my mom took me to an academic teacher, so classical voice teacher, and I fell in love with it. I really liked it, and since I was 11, I've been singing opera, and wherever I moved, and I lived in a few different countries, I would always bring that passion with me, find an instructor to work with, and try to share it with people via performing.
And what I love about how you share your love for opera with other people is that we can actually show some footage of where you're just like break out singing just in public places, like on the street, like,
oh yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so when I moved to San Francisco after graduating, I had this dream of trying to be a street performer and seeing what it's gonna be like. So I set a goal of going to some public spot in San Francisco every single weekend and try to just sing. And first time it was quite weird because, you know, I just stopped at a spot that I picked, and then I'm like, oh, do I sing now? Isn't that weird? But then I did it, and it just stopped being weird. I just got into my groove of performing. So for about 3 months, every weekend, I would go to a spot, sing in public, collect some money.
Just here in San Francisco?
Yes, just here in San Francisco.
And you would stop and you'd collect money, like as a true street performer.
Yes.
And people would start gathering and just stopping. And
yeah, it was actually really amazing. So I had a small bucket that I would collect money in, and I thought I wouldn't be making that much, but some people would throw $20 bills in there. Which was crazy because it's a lot of money, $20 to throw to a street musician, and I think it's because it's so uncommon for a person walking on the street to hear opera specifically performed on the street that people were kind of shocked, thinking that, oh my god, this is so awesome, let me just like drop this big sum of money to help this starving musician. And so I would...
Who actually happens to have a tech job.
Yes. So I would sing for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I would make from $70 to $140 in that time, which was pretty awesome.
In an hour?
In an hour, yeah. And actually gathering a crowd was quite hard. People would usually pass by and drop money because they thought it was cool. But opera is so, I think opera is not a good art to be performed on the streets because the arias, for the most part, are not very catchy. People are not very familiar with them. Usually street performers that perform something very catchy that people heard of, maybe like top 40 or whatever, then they feel very engaged. Whereas with opera, what I found, small children really loved hearing me perform on the streets. I had this one incident where a little girl literally sat down in front of me on the ground on the street, and then her parent had to sit with her for like 15 minutes, and she was just mesmerized.
Wow, so sweet.
Yeah, it was really awesome. But then I gathered a group of people a few times, but it was mostly passerbys that would just give money. So as I said, it was quite hard to catch people's attention for a long period of time, just because of the nature of the art.
And then recently you actually did a Kickstarter campaign about your opera singing, and there was like some filming with drones involved. Tell us about this project.
That was a really awesome project that indeed I have partaken in, and we did a Kickstarter on it. My boyfriend is really into cinematography, and he suggested why won't we film drone footage of San Francisco with you singing in it, so that it's very cinematic, picturesque, and we can attract more people into the art of opera through this beautiful footage that would hopefully engage them. We filmed this really beautiful footage, and I recorded O mio babbino caro by Puccini, the aria that would go well on top of this footage. And we decided to run a Kickstarter where one of the rewards were tickets to the opera concert I would host. And so the Kickstarter went really well. Actually, some press even picked it up. Yahoo Ireland and Yahoo UK, and in Belarus they put up articles about it on some of the major media platforms, which was really flattering for me and my parents in particular, since they're still there.
Nice.
And yeah, the outcome of that Kickstarter was me hosting my first opera concert here in the city.
That's the one that I recently attended, and
exactly.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
So good. Such a great repertoire of arias mostly, I think.
Yeah, it was arias and art songs. The reason for the concert was to have an opportunity to share the music with the audience, but most importantly, to attract more people to the art of opera. I constructed my repertoire in a way where it would be very versatile, would have different languages, and every time before a song, I would tell a story of what the song is about and why it was written. And I think that part made it really engaging for people that have never been exposed to opera. So it was a big success.
Yeah,
thank you for coming.
It was a beautiful musical evening.
Thank you.
So from software engineering to opera singing and performing, let's now move on to your YouTube interest and work. How did you get into YouTube? When did you get into YouTube? And I guess before we get into that, it's really cool because you have about almost 20,000 subscribers, and some of your videos had 500,000 views.
Yeah.
So tell us about the story behind your YouTube.
For sure. So my YouTube interest got sparked, actually, funnily enough, from Instagram stories. Once Instagram stories were released and I started using them, I really liked the video medium, and I just I liked talking on camera a lot, and I thought that it would be really cool to explore YouTube as well, because that's a medium for video creators, that's a medium to talk about things. So I kind of was scared to start YouTube at first because I actually just didn't know how to start. That barrier of not knowing was very, very high for me. So I didn't start for about a year since the desire to actually start. But then a friend of mine put up a video on YouTube, and I reached out to her asking her about it, and she suggested we collaborate. So we decided to create a channel that focused on product design and software engineering, because she's a product designer and I'm a software engineer, and talk about the different perspectives. So we ran a channel together for about 2 months, and then I got way more comfortable and jumped over that hump of fear of not knowing how to start, and now I knew how to start. So I decided to start my own channel, and we decided to split our channel up. She has a great channel called Hello, I'm Alexa that talks about product design, and I have my own channel, Life of Luba, that talks about life in Silicon Valley.
And so in doing your YouTube channel, what have you learned, and what are your plans? Like, where would you like to take it?
Where I want to take the channel is still in the works. I'm still determining it while I'm going with it, since I only started about 7 months ago. But I see this space and niche of people not really sharing what it is like to live here and what it's like to work here in tech. There is a ton of tutorials on YouTube with respect to computer science or learning a specific concept, but that is not my focus. My focus is mostly soft tips and tricks. What is it actually like to work in companies here? So I would want to be a role model in that niche that people look up to. And actually, another thing that I think is important is just breaking the stereotypes of being a software engineer in Silicon Valley. There is a very big stereotype of, if you're a girl in Silicon Valley and you work as a software engineer, and it goes for universities as well, that you're probably really antisocial, you don't know how to dress, you might not look that great, etc., etc. I want to be able to break that stereotype for other women, to know that you can also do other things besides coding outside of your job, and you can be into fashion, you can still preserve your feminine side, and that actually is something that came to my mind after I went to Grace Hopper, which is a women in tech conference, when I met some people that were inspired by my YouTube channel and encouraged me to post more stuff, and I was like, there is actually a community that I can also build around that, which I think is really cool.
Great. You've essentially identified sort of a gap in terms of content around specifically this, more a lifestyle around software engineering, and your perspective being a woman in tech, but at the same time feminine, and classical arts, and YouTuber, and so many things. Okay, moving on, you have another hobby. I mean, I don't know how you're juggling everything you're already doing, but on top of everything, you're also an ice cream enthusiast and maker. So where does this love and interest in ice cream eating and making come from?
Yeah, that is another random hobby of mine, as you mentioned. It was really accidental how I got into it. A friend of mine got an ice cream maker, and I was like, oh my god, you can get an ice cream maker? Let me get one too and see if I can make ice cream. And then he taught me my first ice cream basin recipe after I bought that machine. And I just got really, really into it. I just love making ice cream. I'm not as much into cooking. I don't really enjoy cooking that much, but I really enjoy making ice cream. And I think it's because I absolutely love ice cream myself, and that's probably the one dessert that I really like. I don't really like desserts that much outside of ice cream. And then I started making a lot of it, experimenting with flavors, and then we decided to put together an event to share ice cream with people and see whether I could potentially make it a small side business of maybe making small ice cream pints for order. And the event was a huge success. People loved the ice cream. I do think that my ice cream is amazing, and now I can almost never be okay tasting at store ice cream, because it's just not the same. Once you go down the homemade creamy ice cream route, it just makes a huge difference. And now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put up an Airbnb experience of teaching people how to make ice cream in my apartment. And that's something that's in the works. I'm hoping to launch it sometime in November and do maybe 2 experiences a month.
That's wonderful. And so now let's turn to, how do you juggle all of this? Share some of your productivity tips, prioritization tips. How can you actually sustain these interests of yours and really do it, consistently, weekly? This is not just something you're like on and off. This is like these really well-established side projects or hobbies that you're working on.
That's a great question, and I think we all have struggles managing our time and, just doing all the things we want to do. But I think that it comes down to very clear prioritization and time management. I think that anything in life has to be planned in some way, not necessarily like planned dot to dot, but you have to have an idea in mind of what you want to do with respect to any specific project. And it comes down to really small things, like a day before you might want to put things on your calendar for your free time, where it's not just going to be like, oh, I know I have an evening free after work and I'll just do XYZ because it's in my mind that I need to accomplish those things. But go ahead and actually schedule the time of from 7 to 8 I'm gonna film a YouTube video, from 8 to 9 I'm going to practice opera, etc., etc. And then prioritization with respect to your day-to-day time in general. A lot of people ask, oh my God, how do you have so much time with a full-time job to do so many things? But if you think about it, every evening, of course, if you don't have a crazy commute and etc., you have the evening from like 6 to 10. Let's say you go to bed at 10 and you want to have some personal time. You have that time every single day, and you have the weekend. And it just comes down to prioritizing whether you just want to hang out and have fun, or you want to accomplish your goals and accomplish the projects that you're trying to push forward. So of course I still hang out with people and I still have fun, but at the same time it just comes down to what are you getting also out of the hanging out, because fun is fun, but at the same time, again, like put some thought into how you want to develop a relationship with this person that you want to hang out with. Why are you going to a meetup you're going to? What is the goal? Are you just trying to aimlessly meet people? Are you trying to learn something? Just put intention into how you schedule and organize your time, and then it will definitely bring a lot of value into how you prioritize and time manage.
Yeah, so goal setting really seems to be at the core, planning and saying, I want to be here a month from now with my ice cream making passion, or my opera singing, and then once you have the goals, right, you can work back and say, okay, now let's schedule things so I can actually like plan the roadmap. How am I going to get there, right?
Exactly. And I'm still working on it myself, but those are some of the main things that I think helped me to juggle so many things.
Luba, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to the viewers out there, thank you for joining. If you like this video, please make sure to like it, subscribe, comment, enable notifications, and I hope to see you next time.